It's an exciting time to be alive. Like I always tell you guys, I'm a storyteller. I love a good book. I love great coffee. I love an amazing movie. But more importantly, I love conversations. Now, there's something about conversations. They reveal to us people's journeys. We learn our high points, our low points, everything in between. It's our journey. So today I'm having someone really amazing guy, someone I've admired for the longest time and respect what he's built as an entrepreneur, lawyer turned entrepreneur. Babatunde Akin-Moses is here with us today, guys. Please welcome Babs. It's great to have you in here. So let me take a real recline because it's going to be an exciting conversation. All right. I know sometime last year you released your first book.
Right.
Yeah. So one of the interesting aspects is for you to be a writer, I think you have to be a reader.
Yes.
Can you just walk us through one book that opened your eyes to new world of possibilities?
Right. Man, that was tough. I actually read quite a lot of books, so picking one is tough. But if I can't,
Your top three?
Top three, okay. Classic books. I think I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was 17.
No, that.
I think. I'm not going into too much detail, but with the whole franchise thing, I think the message eventually became a bit diluted because he had all this Rich Dad series. There was Rich This, Poor This, whatever. But the fundamental principles behind that book really, I found it really. I wouldn't be surprised if they raise because, again, it was such a big franchise. There were games, there were spin-offs, Rich Mom, Rich Kids. I mean, it was so much, and it just became this. And a lot of people that started joining the movement later because it was like a movement. A lot of people have now forgotten the essence of what it was, which was about really wealth creation and smart spending of money, or smart use of money rather than resources. I really enjoyed 4 Hour Work Week too. 4 Hour Work Week, really great book. Tim Ferriss, and I would say a third book. Man, it's hard, very hard. Which one? Okay, maybe I would go with Steve Jobs' biography by Walter Isaacson. He has plenty of biographies, by the way.
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember if it was the big white one with the...
Yeah, it's the big one. Yeah, that was the official one. I mean, in some ways, Steve Jobs was one of the most innovative people that ever lived. He changed 6 industries, including your industry, by the way, because of Pixar, right? So when you try to say what does it take to do that, because we're still struggling to change one, and you see one person change 6, and he wasn't the most friendly person. He's very admired now. His path.
He was very hated then.
He was, and a lot of people still don't like him. A lot of people will tell you that they want to innovate like him, but they want to have his personality because.
But there's something about him.
Yeah.
And there's also something about Elon.
Yes.
So people talk about the fact that Steve and Elon are terrible to work with. I remember one of the ladies I met who had worked with Elon in Silicon Valley. She said, Elon is the kind of person you enjoy working with or not enjoy working with, but one thing is certain, you don't want to come back. And that you're never the same, you're scared. Do you think there's a way you have to be in the world to become that disruptive? Are the most broken people the most disruptive?
Maybe not broken, but just maybe I'm careful not to say polarized or maybe direct. So I like biographies, right? And I have read even Elon's biography, read a couple of books about Bill Gates, but why I wouldn't. There seems to be more evidence that a lot of more extreme eccentric people actually turn out to be the biggest disruptors, right? Elon, Steve Jobs, all of that.
Even Bill's book, Source Code.
Yes.
He was talking about how he wasn't a well-adjusted child.
He wasn't, but you know why Bill Gates gives people like me hope? Because Bill Gates is still a bit much more practical. He was like, okay, good student. Even if he dropped out, made high SAT scores. Conventional geek, really. The thing about his own geek that made him interesting, just like the Google guys too, is that he was also very in tune with business intelligence, even as a young guy, right? So he was telling them to sell software when people were distributing for free and all of that stuff. But Bill Gates is pretty much still very much, even if he could be harsh, like he could tell you that that's the most stupid thing at meetings. He could say this is the most dumb idea I've ever heard.
If we bring these guys to Nigeria, would they still be the same great guys they are? And the point again is, does the environment have anything to do?
I would say they will be great, but their reach will be limited. As much as I am an advocate, I'm one of the most patriotic people I know and encourage people to stay in Nigeria and all of that, I would still be objective enough to say that the most practical and insightful example of the impact of Jackpot is Elon Musk. If Elon Musk didn't Jackpot from South Africa to the US,
True.
I mean, the chance, capital, talent, resources, even the global mobility that you get just by being
not
an
just
American
any type of capital, risky capital.
Somebody says that there is West Coast capital and East Coast capital, and what does that mean in context of America? That if you get East Coast capital is not risk capital. The Wall Street guys, they want their steady 20-25% return every year. They want to give you $1 million and they want you to keep building it. It might take you 30 years to make money or be very rich, but it's steady, it is predictable. That's the New York capital. But if you want risk capital, like you said, that's West Coast capital, that's California, that's Silicon Valley. They don't mind investing in 100 companies and 99 fail, but that one that succeeds is 1 million X. So that kind of capital and that kind of thinking. And to be honest, we still even need a local ecosystem that we invest. A lot of people have said this, but the truth is that you see the richest people in Nigeria, they invest in is real estate, right? Real estate or fixed deposits, which helps some of us in fintech, by the way, but it doesn't help innovation because, like you said, you need to take a risk to be able to achieve something exponentially different. See Elon, Tesla, SpaceX, they almost failed. He basically risked his net worth to make those companies succeed after he exited PayPal, right? So I think
I was living in the big here.
Yeah. So I mean, it's extreme sports, extreme risk. But I mean, again, I guess it's easier to conceptualize that risk when the basic necessities are taken care of.
For the most part, you've sorted your needs, but building Sycamore. Now, this is Nigeria where we're talking about, access to loans.
Yeah.
Major challenge for many people.
Yeah.
Walk us through why
Yeah.
you started it, because your background is law.
Yeah.
Before you
Actually, economics.
Huh?
Economics.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your background is economics, and now after your MBA, you're here
Yeah.
running one of Nigeria's most thriving fintech, at least in the loan space.
Yeah.
What led you to that
Yeah.
need, and why that need?
Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting that you say that, because when so different things happen. When I used to work in consulting, I applied for a loan for the first time because I got a message on LinkedIn. It wasn't as common as it used to be, where you get a message saying, "Oh, you can get 1 million in 5 days" or something like that. And I said, "Are you sure? Is this true?" I said, "Yes." Now applied, got it, and it was a relatively smooth process. It was very manual, but I had to get guarantors, I had to fill forms, I had to fill the form with Biro. There was no app then. This was maybe 2014-ish or something like that. That's over 10 years ago. Wow. So did that, and I thought the process was cool. Now fast forward maybe 2 years later or something, I started a side hustle. I started a laundry business.
By this time you were in LBS, yeah?
No, I wasn't got to the LBS. I was in PwC.
Oh yeah.
I was in PwC. So I started a laundry business. And in fact, interestingly, the dream then was to be the first online laundry service in Nigeria. So you're supposed to go to the website, put 3 clothes, put 3 shirts, 2 trousers, you see your bill, then you pay. It was so difficult to achieve that. There was no pay stack. Anyways, that's another long story. Long story short, we did that business, and I wanted to get a loan for the business, and it was almost impossible for that business to get a working capital loan. And that just showed me the two parallels that, as an employee, you could get a loan if you had a steady salary. As a business, it was almost impossible because they're like, your cash flow is not steady. Today you made 1 million, tomorrow you made 100,000, next month you made 300,000. So people didn't want to take a chance on, those kind of businesses. They asked you to go and bring property in, like, where would I going to get property from? So we said, okay. So the insight then was, or the first observation, it was difficult for a small business to get a loan. And then, went to LBS, took a study leave from PwC, and then for some reason that thing kept coming up. We're looking at cases of a financing company in Ghana that was doing something similar, right? And we just checked to see, what is the data for like in Nigeria? I found out there are over 40 million SMEs, and only 1% of the entire credit available in Nigeria goes to them every year, right? When we look at the breakdown from CBN website, you see that oil and gas companies, hotels, all the credit, 99% was going to all those guys. All the 40 million SMEs, there's 1% that they had access to. We said, this is a very big problem, and it's an opportunity, right? Socially, you're helping small businesses, or you're helping, right now, I call them growing businesses, small business. We can talk about that later. So we look at these growing businesses, nobody wants to give them capital. There's technology, things are easier now compared. Now there was pay stack. When I went to LBS 17, 18, so the technology became a bit easier. And so it was that opportunity. So my personal experience, from doing my side hustle, and even getting as an employee, and then just seeing that there is this potential for this thing to be done. And also, because technology had caught up, it made it easier to build an online application that you could actually do loans. Because before Paystack, before Flutterwave,
everything was highly manual.
It was very difficult. It was almost impossible for me to get, in 2014 when I had my laundry business, it was almost impossible for me to get an online way of collecting payments. Almost impossible. In fact, then the only one that was there was InterSwitch. InterSwitch asked us to bring 250k just to put a free widget that everybody is giving out today, right?
And they also take, I think
they take a percentage. Yeah, they take a percentage. I didn't even have 1250k to give them back then. It looks small now, but it was a lot of money. That was more than my salary back then. So I didn't have the money to give them. There was a Vogue Pay then that we tried to use. There were many other guys. It was difficult. So yeah, that's how.
See, the interesting thing is the rate of failure. So we hear that about 70% of startups fail within the 5 years.
Yeah.
Just trying to fill that gap you called growing businesses.
Yes.
What has been your experience with working with them? There is one thing to design your business for the small businesses, but there is also the flip side of the small businesses being ready, understanding enough the risk involved.
Yeah.
Right. How's that relationship been working?
So for small or growing businesses that I'm trying to call them now these days, I think they are, broadly speaking, I'll categorize failure into 2 reasons. One is, I would say they are the ones that are within your control, right? Which is management or mismanagement, greed, poor business practices, all those things. They are those ones. You can blame the entrepreneur and the management team for those ones, and we can unpack that later. On the other side, there are some forces beyond your control. I think that if you had started an online payment company before NIPS or InterSwitch, you would have struggled, right? I think so. And there are a lot of them. So I tried a lot. I can't remember their names now. Cash Envoy, Vogue Pay, Kinikon, different ones. And all those businesses, most of them don't exist today, but there was no NIPS, there was no InterSwitch. to some extent, they were before their time. And even Sim Shagaya would tell you that to some extent, Konga was ahead of his time when they started.
True.
Right? So, and there are other factors too. Exchange rates can affect some kind of business, inflation, depending on your type of business, right? Something might just work against you that might not necessarily be your fault. So those ones, you can still give the people credit for trying. I would say it's just what it is, right? If it's outside your control. Now, if you come to this other side of failure based on things that are in your control, I mean, there are so many things to unpack there. I typically would have this. I think that in some cases there's a knowledge gap issue in some cases where a lot of people that go into businesses, again, because motive is also very important. If you go into business, which is not anybody's fault, but if the primary reason is survival, there's sometimes going to be a different way from somebody that is doing it intentionally, that has options. I don't know if that makes any sense. And there's just a different way of trying to look at it. So what do I mean? There's some things you take for granted now. If somebody opens a business, they're supposed to have a separate account from their business accounts. They're supposed to register the business. They're supposed to have, if they are co-founders, they're supposed to have maybe a shareholder agreement. Something, all this, they're seemingly small things, but these things kill businesses. They really kill businesses. So the question now is, what's the knowledge gap in knowing what to do and not what to do? So why I'm trying not to use small businesses, and this sort of segues into that, is my fear for a lot of small business. How do I say? There's a small business ecosystem now in Nigeria and the world. So there's so many people making money off serving small businesses, financing, knowledge, advice, consultancy, legal, everything. Now the challenge with it is that advice and that ecosystem, in my view, is designed to keep you small. But you're not supposed to be small forever.
I see. So it's about doing it for a period of time while you're
exactly. So
that your structures can carry.
It's a journey. So you need to be conscious of when you will move from small, medium to big. But I noticed that this small business ecosystem, they're not being served. They're being served by a lot of big businesses, by the way. I don't call names, but they are fine that these businesses stay small. But there needs to be a conscious shift from this small business advice is good for the stage you are, your first whatever.
How do you know
revenue?
That shift is very...
So that's a very good question. I think it varies. There are different metrics you can use. You can use how big the company is getting. You can use financials. You can use numbers. You can also use even just ambition, size of
deals, like
even size of deals. So today, where I'm coming from, one of the places I went to today, we have this scale up endeavor program, right? There's this endeavor scale up thing. Yes, exactly. So we had a session today with the MD of Omni Retail, right? And they are massive now. They're doing millions of dollars in revenue every month. And you know what the guy said? The guy said it, and I'm very happy when he said it. He said, look, they had 60 warehouses in Nigeria that they're managing with some people. And he said that when the warehouses were growing, when their revenues, when they started getting to $2 million, $3 million a month, he was like, no, I need a COO. I need to start putting a bigger structure to handle that growth. And there's a particular billionaire that they make fun of in Nigeria. I don't call his name. He still manages his business like
we know him.
Everybody knows him. But that, you see, that's a small business with operating in a smaller structure. Do you understand? So I think that sometimes not everybody wants to make that transition. Sometimes it happens organically. Like maybe you get a $1 billion contract, then you know that okay, now I need accountant too. But sometimes you also have to engineer it where you say, no, I'll get accountant because I'm preparing for the 1 billion naira contract. Sometimes the 1 billion naira contract will come first. But sometimes you can also put yourself on a deadline to say, no, I want to get to 1 billion in 5 years. And just in 1 billion, it might be small for magic carpet, right? But just an example. So I think that the most important thing is there are different. There's more than one route to the answer. No, it's getting cut, right? So I think it can happen organically or inorganically in terms of you being ready for that next stage. But I think that what's important is identifying how you think is best to get there. If it happens organically, great. But if it's not happening organically, you need to intentionally move to start getting the advice that medium-sized businesses are getting. Then when you're medium, you start looking for the ecosystem for some of the bigger business, because let's tell us something in consulting that they won't promote you until you're ready for the next stage. So if you're an assistant manager,
you have to design for the next stage.
You have to start acting like a manager while you're an assistant manager before they promote you. So they will say, oh, promote this guy, he's already acting like a manager, so therefore he deserves promotion. But you say this guy is still acting like an associate, a first level entry person, but he's due for manager. Why are we going to make him manager? Because he's not acting like the next level already, right? You need to start showing signs that you are ready to take up that next level. Even sometimes it might not even have come, but you're already putting the structures in place, consuming information, and it's gradually. I'm not asking anybody to go and start being a big business, go and rent a skyscraper and
this is almost like to be a master class in how not to stay small.
Yeah, but there's a time for everything. There's a time to be small, but I think you should put yourself on a timetable. Either you put yourself on a timetable or you allow your business trajectory, because growth comes faster for some people. They start business now and it grows more exponentially than they would have wanted. And again, there's choice. I was reading about one lady. There's this book I just read, Automatic Customer. And it says that there's a lady, she has a lifestyle business. She has 400 customers and she doesn't want it to grow more than that because she wants to be able to go on vacations. She wants to have just 3 staff doing everything that, just automating the business. She doesn't want it to cross that. She's making maybe $5,000-$10,000 a month in profit that comes to her directly. And that's okay. She travels, she comes back. It's okay. If that is your goal, it's fine. That's your goal. But if you want to, I don't know, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, you probably have to be more intentional in your growth trajectory.
So you're in the fintech space. Let's just talk about what your take is in this. I mean, 75% of the capital that comes into the country today
is fintech.
Goes all to fintech.
Yes.
But a lot of fintech have also failed.
Yes.
And it looks like everybody's doing the same thing. Maybe there is just API for plantain, API for fish, right? Everybody's finteching.
Yeah. Multi.
But just wanting to hear your thoughts in terms of where do you think the fintech industry is now?
Yeah. I think the funny thing about innovation, you can sometimes you think it has plateaued and then something happens, right? DeepSeek comes up. So I would say that for some certain, so let's break it down. Fintech is financial services and technology. Technology, we've done fantastic. Financial services, if we break financial services down, we have savings, we have loans, we have insurance, we have pensions, right?
Deposit collection.
Deposits can be part of savings. You can say deposits, So if you look at all these financial services and payments too, obviously payments, local, foreign, what they call cross-border here. So if you look at all these services, we're not there in insurance yet though. Like many Nigerians are not insured. Many Nigerians don't have pensions. Savings a bit more, from the days of using our colo that we can break. There's already a savings type thing. Loans, loans is accessible to a small segment of people. It's easy to think that loans are plenty because they're in Lagos. If you go to somewhere else, you'll notice that there are very few people. And we're even saying, even in Lagos, how easy is it to get a mortgage? We can talk. I mean, everybody here knows somebody that's jackpot. You can go and ask somebody living in UK, they work for 5 years, they probably bought a house, even if it's on mortgage. Mortgage is still difficult to access in Nigeria. So there are a lot
Most
of
obvious, you buy it and
Yeah.
what is it?
yeah,
Payment.
it's for you get cash down like many parts of our economy, right? So, and even credit generally, how easy is it for you to walk into a shop right now and pay in installments? There are some of those places that have buy now pay later, but it's still not widespread yet of how easy it is to. Nobody buys an iPhone in the US, UK. Not necessarily nobody, but most people buy those phones on contract, pay over time. They deal with the network, whatever, you know. Those things are not there. So we're not still there. I think that the news has a way of, the news and the unicorns have a way of sort of making us think that, oh man, we've solved fintech. But we haven't. The guys that are there are very successful. You know,
There's still lots of gaps in the market.
a lot. And the challenge we're having now is most of us are in the red ocean.
Oh, yeah.
Most people are in payments. Look at all the pay stack, Flutter with money point payments, OPay, all payments. We've not had any credit.
Payment safe.
It's safer to the extent that, you know, payment is one transaction. Once I pay you and received it, if there's no reversal, it's fine. The challenge for things like credit and maybe savings has always been, savings now is institutional failure can happen. Like, you saved all your life savings and the institution packs up because poor management or something. That's even happened to banks, so that's not even a fintech only issue. For credit, it's always, will the money come back? If you give me 1 trillion naira, I can disburse it today. There are people that will collect it, right? 10 trillion, in fact, if I enter,
We always have a waiting list of more people.
there are always people that want loans. Always. You're never short in demand. The challenge is now given to credible people or businesses.
Being able to, yeah.
So that's really the work. It's not really give loan. We give it out. If we make mortgage easier today, everybody wants to buy houses now. If you look at how many Nigerians own their own homes today, right? Very few. So there's a lot of space, but I think you know, not a lot of people like to do hard things. So you have this wide space of so many things that could be done, but not a lot of people are tackling them.
But can we talk about your interest rate for the
Yeah.
industry?
Yeah.
Most times people talk about the fact that cost of
Funds
funds
is expensive.
is expensive. So by the time you aggregate it for a period of time,
Yeah.
some people are almost on the 36-40%
Yeah.
payment with
Yeah.
a year.
Yeah.
Is there a way that you guys are thinking about reducing that interest rate to become more attractive? Maybe that's the differentiation you're looking for.
Well, that's possible. Unfortunately, there are many things that we can't control. So let me give an example. So the interest rate we have in Nigeria now, I don't know how technical I can be, but we have an MPR, monetary policy rate, that is the benchmark. We have it at 27.5%.
It has to be profitable.
And it has to be profitable. So now I have an offer letter from a bank, one of the biggest banks in Nigeria. They want to give me a loan at 37%. Now that overdraft, 37% is an average of 3+% a month, right? Now let's assume I want to give those as, I want to unlend that money to other people. How much am I going to lend it at? Let's even assume I do 4% a month. Let me assume. Now that 4% has to take care of everything I want, everything I need. But I didn't come up with the 4% by myself. It's the MPR, the bank added its own. I'm involved, so I'm adding my own spread, right? But money now is expensive in Nigeria because of some of those fundamentals. Now, if there is development funds, those can be cheaper, but they are very difficult to get. You probably need some connection. You need to be a bit connected. If you're going to get like single digits funds, if you want to get from like BOI, for example, you still need collateral because you need bank guarantee, and the bank guarantee requires collateral. The cheapest phones you can get are foreign, but then exchange rates can hit you. So even if I go and get $10 million now at 4% per annum, fantastic. I will lend to you at 12%, for example, if the currency was stable. Somebody asked me my revenue growth from 2023 to 2024. My Naira had grown 100%. In USD terms, it had not grown.
Wow.
Yes, you can.
I hear
understand.
that. So that there's your economy has to grow within a particular threshold to attract foreign direct investment.
Foreign direct investment, and right now, to be honest, the fundamentals just don't make it very easy to for cost of borrowing to be low right now. At least for the general population. That's just what it is now. But I mean, at the same time, it's also high because they are also trying to encourage people to invest in the Naira. So that's Cardoso's strategy. Look, if the interest rate is high, you guys will demand for Naira because you'll be getting very good returns on your money. So come and take, I would, as the owner of the capital, I would give you 30% per annum. I expect you to then hold Naira at 30% per annum instead of holding USD at 4 or 5% per annum.
I see.
So you can demand more Naira. Ish. At least I still
not have any impact on inflationary rates.
It's supposed to, because as at 2 weeks at the beginning of this year, dollar was averaging 1.6, 1.7. As at today is 1.570. So I mean, there is a debate that some of it is working, and it had a direct impact on inflation. The car that was bought 2020 for 2.5 million is now 15 million Naira. Not because of anything, because of exchange rates. It's the same dollar amount. If you just the amount has stayed the same in dollars, but in Naira it has tripled or quadrupled or whatever. So there's a pass-through inflation that comes from a lot of foreign items. The same thing with iPhone, right? You see, an iPhone is $1,000. A few years ago, when dollar was 460, that is a 460,000 Naira phone. Now, $1,000 is 1.6 million. Nothing has changed dollar terms, just the exchange rates, and that is some of the inflation from 460 to 1.6 million. Same $1,000. So that exchange rate passes through and causes a lot of inflation. Cars, phones, clothes. The shirt that was £100, then I mean, there's an expensive shirt. Look at the difference now too, right? So there is a lot of distortion, but now, so what we need is actually stability. I don't know we're going to get back to the 460. It's possible, anything's possible, but if we even get to this point where this car you bought for 10 million this year, in 10 years time, pata 11 or 12, so that there's stability, and we now adjust our lives around that new reality. Not that we are hoping that it will get back to
the previous.
No.
Because I even think for an economy to get to that point, there has to be the structures of production that can allow for you to even decrease your import threshold and increase your local production. I don't know that we have that level of investment.
So that's the thing. You made a very important point now. So that's my theory of why we need more entrepreneurs, right? Dangote single-handedly has reduced our demand for dollar. One man. I mean, they abuse the man. Monopolies, Kinikon, many people don't like him.
We got that for his being around.
Yes, for enterprise. The guy gambled his life, his net worth. Baba was worth $20 billion when he did a $20 billion project. That thing can wreck him. It's even affected his other businesses because it's on the back of the cement and other businesses. A lot of people gave him that credibility to be able to get some loans to finance that business, right? So you look at the difference that one man can make, right? And here, if you notice, fuel price has gradually been reducing. It's slow, but it's come from the 1Ks, 950, 890 now, just a few days ago. Do you understand? So again, we might not go back to 20 naira fuel anytime soon, but that's the difference that enterprise can make. And a lot of the solutions that we talk about, that when we travel and we see a lot of these things, government enables it, but it's people that build. It's enterprises that solve it. A lot of the best schools, a lot of the best hospitals, a lot of the biggest companies that solve these problems, the power issue, these private companies that supply power. Fine, government needs to put in a level of infrastructure, but it's people and businesses that are actually providing this service. But you will need you need a lot of small businesses, but you also need a lot of big businesses like Dangote too, that can provide big services at scale. I want Magic to do an animation that can, like go toe to toe with Shrek in terms of worldwide appeal and distribution, right? Yeah.
So I'm just also thinking, how would you define entrepreneurship or an entrepreneur?
That question is a $1 billion question.
Yeah. I mean, are there certain traits to you? So if I would say, what's an entrepreneur to you? Are there certain traits that you can look at and say, these are the traits that if I look into an entrepreneur and I find this trait, I can do a check?
So, I've struggled with this, so I don't have an answer, but I'll tell you my thoughts on the question. And I say that now because in my mind, anybody that was into business, I used to think person was an entrepreneur. But why I'm now
just traders.
So it's people that started to tell me that this person is not an entrepreneur. He does buying and selling. And in my mind, I'm like, we're not an entrepreneur now. What else is, because, and I think I heard this thing maybe 15 years ago. It was then NYC, one of my bosses that said it, that no, this person is not a great entrepreneur. A person is just a trader that buys and sells. I don't know that that's not entrepreneurship, because there's some value being created, because the way to buy and sell might not be so straightforward. There's a lot of structure that needs to be put in place. So is that entrepreneurship? Maybe not. Some other people will tell you that entrepreneurship has to do with some level of innovation and maybe doing things differently, or maybe building something, as opposed to buying gala and selling it. You make your own sausage, you manufacture, you package, and then you sell, right? A lot of people will say, okay, that's entrepreneurship. But if you are buying from USC and selling gala, you're a trader, not an entrepreneur. That's what some people would say. I don't yet have conviction around which is correct or wrong, because you need everybody in the value chain to make it work. If those distributors were not there, that gala won't get to the end user. So there's value in that. But I think generally speaking, whether we call them entrepreneurs, businessmen, trader, importer, exporter, self-employed, I think generally speaking, the traits I would mention are risk. I think that, if we're doing something, that risk/boldness, right? You need boldness to take certain risks. Courage. I think those are the biggest factors, with that courage, boldness, risk. Because you look at a lot of people that are doing amazing things, and then you say, no, this is not necessarily intellect. It's not necessarily intellect. These people just have guts. When you look at what they ask for, somebody will walk into the I remember, and I know some people, entrepreneurs will walk into the office of MD of Coca-Cola and say, I want to supply you with sugar. And you say yes or no. The other guy will say no. Who am I that day?
You probably have suppliers already.
Yeah. You discourage yourself from walking into the office. Meanwhile, the person that doesn't mind the risk and has the boldness and the courage can go, and by the time it goes to 10 of
less qualified.
No, many times they are, but you have the lever, you find that if that plays a significant difference.
For people that are very logical, somehow they can just analyze, they cannot do, that can work. But one of the things I've seen in entrepreneurship is that sometimes the guys who start are usually very disruptive.
Yes.
They have guts. Yeah. Sometimes very little fear.
Fear, very
It's
little.
not high risk for happy. They can throw in everything,
Yeah.
right? But as the business,
Those, yeah.
and particularly in Nigeria, one thing I realized is you then have to find a way to insulate the company from that tendency.
Yes.
Because that tendency that got you to where you are
Yeah.
may now be very dangerous to take you into the future.
Yes.
So at that point in time, too much risk, but you have regulatory framework.
Yes.
Too much risk, but you have running costs.
Yes.
Too much risk, so you have to balance that
You have to
very
balance
much.
it.
And I love, so risk is it for me. The other thing I also think is
Yeah.
innovation is one thing I use to
Yeah.
differentiate an entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur,
While all entrepreneurs are businessmen, not all businessmen are
entrepreneurs. I like.
And I'll put it in this way is because innovation is on many levels. But if I look at this thing and I ask myself, how do I make you build it for cheaper? Right? I'm already speaking to
Yeah. That's
innovator.
innovation.
I'm asking myself, how do I drive that cost? Whether it's incremental innovation, I put a little bit here, and I create sort of like a new market in a saturated market, or I'm thinking about reusing a product in new ways. So there are different levels of innovation, but I think that I have a theory around what I call the velocity of innovation within a company and the velocity of innovation in that industry where the company operates.
Okay.
For instance, you are in the finance industry. If the pace of innovation in the industry is faster than the pace of innovation in your company, that company gets dated. Because before long, you're playing a catch-up and so people will take the market.
Yes.
But if the pace of innovation or the velocity of innovation in the company is above the average in the industry, that company will define the future. Or at least will become an early adopter.
Early adopter, yeah.
So in your company, what are the strategies you're taking to sustain the velocity of innovation to ensure that you don't only play catch-up, but you lead?
You lead, yeah. That's a very deep question. I think that for Sycamore and for really any other company that wants to be both innovative and stable, because in some instances a lot of people see them as enemies, where if you say that
Partly for resources, resource allocation, we can really compete.
They will always compete. I mean, we're experiencing it now. Like we're trying to do something in fintech lending that, to the best of our knowledge, nobody has done now, right? And what we are seeing internally is big resistance from a lot of people that feel that no, this is the standard industry way. This is how they've been doing it. This is how we've been doing it. I worked in 3 places. They are big companies. This is how they've been doing it. Let us continue doing it like this, right? So I think that you need to maintain that strategic tension of the balance between paying the bills if you're already making revenue as a business, and then having a way to still explore. There's this guy, I like his he has a very interesting theory around this thing. His name is Roger Martin. He wrote this book called Playing to Win. Playing to Win, yeah. I mean, interesting. He calls it exploitation versus exploration. Now, exploitation is, you're an Apple, you were innovative, you did iTunes, you did iPhone, you did iPod, you did iPad, you did iMac. Now you've become $1 trillion company, and now you're exploiting everything you've done in the past. No new anything. Okay, maybe the Apple Watch came out, the goggle, I can't remember the name, that hasn't sold a lot, but the main thing is still the iPhone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now only God knows, I don't know where we are now,
I think
but
we're heading to 16.
the number share. So now they're harvesting the work that was done over time. Now that's exploitation. Now there's exploration too. Exploration is, what are the new things we can do? How can we be at the cutting edge? What are we going to bring to the market that is not the iPhone, that is totally different? Now there's always going to be that tension in every company. And I'm saying it because this also applies to Sycamore. This is something I'm thinking about actively now, between exploitation and exploration, because the people that are benefiting or are comfortable with the status quo, because most of the people in the company are employees, and maybe that's not why, but a lot of them are more comfortable with stability, and they're afraid of what will happen if we want to now do something else. iPhone that is selling every year, let's just be making 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. till we get to 100. If people are buying, let's just continue. Versus somebody knowing that a lot of phones are becoming like iPhones.
True.
People even argue that some phones are even better, minus the brand affiliation.
Even better cameras.
Better cameras, better features. But if we stay with this iPhone, maybe by the time we get to 25, we will still have this edge we have now. That was what happened with BlackBerry, right? Maybe somebody would have made something different. So, as they'll say, it's better we cannibalize ourselves before somebody cannibalizes us. So, as you're exploiting the past, you need to have a way, which is not easy. I don't think there's any formula for it, of how are we exploring for things that can potentially come. What are we investing in R&D, innovation, that part of the business.
We've heard the quote about why ask for faster horses
Yes.
when we can.
When they said if I ask customers what they want,
They'll tell
what
you what the faster horse.
but he did a car. So it's the more better new. There's this guy Akin-Moses or somebody else can say it too. Is when you look at every industry, you're thinking of it in terms of more better new. What do I mean? So take a car, you can make a better car. You can make a bigger car, that's more, right? Or you can do something new. A faster car can be better. So better can be anything about the car that you want to be better. It can be the size, it could be the speed, it can be the AC, it could be something.
Convertible.
It could be convertible.
Purpose cars.
But if you want something new, then you're thinking Tesla.
Yeah.
So if you stay with more or better, it's mostly incremental differentiation. But if you look at new or different, is totally, you're now thinking outside the box, as opposed to just increasing the box or playing around with the box.
The understanding the box. So this is what other thing when I spoke about in one of the books I'm writing about this velocity of innovation that I see in companies and in industry. There's a third layer, which is the velocity of innovation in the global market. So there is a global market. There is also
I love this angle.
Yeah, it's global market. And for instance, we're in AI.
Yes.
So here in the company, we're working on an AI product. In America, the battle of AI is they will tell you, please forget about building LLMs.
LLMs, yeah. It's done.
Just AI your products and let's be going. Right? So literally what they're trying to do is to power SaaS.
Yes.
Solutions that can run. Now when you go to China is competing on LLMs. Right? I don't even know. I know that Benga is trying to fund Flutterwave Benga. He was talking about trying to fund AI products, but I don't know that they want to back any LLMs.
Not necessarily.
So in a sense, when it comes to certain industry, we just battling with the resources that is required to build a full-fledged LLM, right? You know that are able to train models.
Yeah, train models.
You know that Africa doesn't have that capital.
No.
There's nobody who can waste that money, right? So will you just respect yourself and say, okay, yes, velocity of innovation in this space is higher in the world, but it's not existent here.
Yeah.
But being able to sort of like at least meet. Now there are a lot of conversations around regional positioning. So people now start to think, am I supposed to move? One of the beauty of the Bay Area in Silicon Valley is that when you go there, you find that it's not even about America. It's about people are not just connected by geography; they're connected by risk, innovation, desire.
Yeah.
So I asked an Uber driver that carried me the last time in Silicon Valley. He asked a question, and I asked him, "Why do you think this is different?" He said, "Okay, what is different here from China?" See, there's a lot of money and investment and research in China. The difference between China and Silicon Valley is diversity. That because that Silicon Valley is very diverse, people are bringing in cultures, people are bringing in, so that melting pot allows for innovation to have different, but you know that in China it can be very linear.
Yeah.
Every once in a while you can have a DeepSeek.
Yes.
But in America you have DeepSeeks. Like they will emerge regardless.
Yeah.
And have you ever thought about in the age of Trump?
Yeah.
Everyone is just sort of curious as to policy. Do you think African companies in the diaspora they are doing the right thing by expanding their companies into those regions? Because almost every unicorn in Nigeria is actually not a Nigerian company.
Yeah.
From all the major names, they are very, very diluted or maybe very little Nigeria ownership.
Yeah.
Most of them are actually American companies, with partly Nigerian ownership. So wanted to speak around how you were thinking around that disruption, expanding your business into new
Globally. Yeah.
and all of those things now.
Yeah. I think that initially it's important for the visionary, whoever that is, of the business to actually have that aspiration. And I say that now because it's just like the intentional way you go from small, medium to big company. I think that we should also be having those aspirations to go from local to state, local champion, become a state champion, become a continental, become a global champion, which is possible. And sometimes you might skip a step or two in the process, right? But I feel like not enough of us have had that even as a goal that is written down. Maybe not written down, but just even if, as an aspiration that is in our head. I always like to make a joke around, or look around you, look at everything around you and ask how many are local products versus foreign products. So if you sit in a room in Nigeria, you can point foreign products in a room a lot, from our wristwatches to our phones, maybe light, ACs, everything. If you go and sit in a room in the US or the UK and look around the room, can you see any African products? Chances very limited, right? So first off is I feel like a lot of us don't make that an intentional aspiration even from day one. And secondly, and we discussed this extensively, maybe our own problems also make it difficult to see some of those possibilities. So what do I mean? My house is I feel like my house now is like a mini power station. I have like maybe 3 sources of power, inverter, big gens. I mean, I was just joking with my wife that one must shall work. There's no way you can be down, but there's so much. Let's even leave financial capability, but I think it's very difficult to think about powering Mars when there's no power in Lekki. I
Such a man,
it's not easy. It's difficult mentally.
yes.
Not impossible, but if you are sitting in darkness,
In existential.
yeah. So I think we saw this a lot, right? It's just difficult to project that this thing, but I find that being intentional to make that the goal actually goes a long way, such that you might land 1 or 2 steps lower, but you will still achieve something similar. So one thing I love about Benga Flutter Wave is the intentionality to be a global player.
Yep.
It is intentional and it's clear, such that even if it doesn't meet that goal, it's already top in Africa. I don't know if you get what I mean. It's almost like you shoot for the sun and you land on a star, something like that. So I think we should, and it's not easy, and it probably take a lot more work than our counterparts there. But it's I think it's necessary. The other point you made, thinking about Trump and nationalism generally, I think for the US, I think it would be unfortunate if the US loses its welcoming diversity, because that's what has made the US what it is.
True.
There are these articles and all these graphics going around about many Indian CEOs. At the time, Twitter CEO was Indian, Pepsi CEO was Indian, Microsoft was Indian, Google was Indian. I mean, then a lot of Chinese CEOs as well. But these are Americans, Indian Americans, Chinese Americans. They're not pure, but it just speaks to what you said. It's a melting pot of different ideas, different ideologies. And America was structured as, we want the best in the world to come and innovate here. So the American dream is that you come and you blow and you become a billionaire, either on Wall Street, in Silicon Valley or Hollywood, something. You shall blow if you are good. Los Angeles, entertainment, Silicon Valley, technology, finance, New York, you will blow if you are good. So come. And I think that's helped them a lot. And I feel like I don't even know why a lot of countries will adopt. One of the things I would be if I was like Nigeria, whatever, is everybody should become visa.
Yes.
It should be easy to attract.
It's a nation of immigrants.
Yeah,
and I think
exactly.
that immigrants have also made it their home. And I think part of what they tell people is that we all got here.
Yes.
Except you're a Native American, we all got here. But you wrote your first book last year, I think, Today The Economist, right? But I wanted us to, and because we're closing in a bit, but I wanted us to just speak to why you wrote that book and what you're hoping to achieve. Because I know I said I was going to get one for my kid, and I remember now that I said so. So please, you guys should remind me so that I can do that, because I want them to start thinking money very, very quickly. But I would have spoke us through why you wrote the book and what you're trying to achieve with it.
Not trying to achieve. Okay, that's a good question. I was finishing up. I did an exchange program I want to give you the history. I did an exchange program in Spain when I was in LBS. I went to ESA Business School in Barcelona. And I was sitting there. I just finished reading. I was on social media, and then Mefili increased NPR by maybe 0.5%, and I felt that I felt everybody knew, and I was just on social media, and a very senior person that I knew just left a comment. Now, what's the impact of this on the common man? Why are they making noise about NPR, and what's the impact on the common man? And I'm like, if this person doesn't know, that means a lot of people probably don't know. And then I wrote a very short article. The intention was to be funny and educative, and then I probably wrote like 5 versions, but the one I landed on was a Q&A version where somebody will be asking questions and somebody will be answering, and there'll be jokes in between, just to make it relatable and make it very simple. So that's how I started on Babatunde and Junior. And basically it was a series around when economic news comes out, I would write a very short explainer. The mental picture was a young guy asking his uncle questions like, uncle, what's this? And the whole idea was to move away from the way like intellectual people would sound and be talking down on people when they write articles. When somebody that feels that they are brilliant writes an article explaining, I feel like sometimes it comes off, I don't know, you can see the arrogance in it, and it's not simple enough. So my objective then was simplicity, and humor, entertainment, right, and knowledge at the same time. So those were the pillars. So since then, I've been writing on Kutundi articles, and I sort of had like a small following online where when something new comes out, people start tagging me, Kutundi, come and explain. I started doing videos and stuff like that. So over time, that's been happening. And I stumbled on something, I think maybe last year, that said, that a book is the best content, is the best thought leadership tool that anybody could do. And there was a bunch of reasons why. That was one. And two, I also find out that, my own personal capacity, I also like to give towards like education and health causes, social causes, so I have like particular charities and NGOs that are dedicated to health and education that I like to give. I've been doing it for some years now. So my intention was, do this book of some principles that you've been writing about, make it into graphic format. I like comics. I mean, like comics. So the format was there, but also do it in such a way that part of the process of the book goes to the Babatunde Fund. So I wrote about it in the book where I wanted to also create a sustainable vehicle to keep funding these initiatives that I've been doing, which is why a lot of, as much as an educating people, so let people see that these things are not as far-fetched. Don't let all these gurus bamboozle you that you don't know. You don't know inflation and NPR. They're very simple. This is it in very simple language. So while you are doing that, you're also helping out, because you know that the process of this book are also going towards these causes. And I'm very happy that the first beneficiary of that fund is the graphic artist that actually get with the illustration, and I was really touched. 19-year-old guy did excellent work illustrating that book, and was struggling to get himself into Unilab. And I'm even coaching him to charge more for himself, because I thought he didn't charge well. And he's struggling to he's so talented, struggling to get himself into school. So I said, look, the first set of proceeds, we're going to pay your tuition. And that's the first thing the first cause Babatunde Fund gave to, right? Just enter Unilab. So there is that whole thing of disseminating knowledge in a fun and interesting way. And there's also that part of giving back that is the other side of the process.
I note something as we wrap up, that the Jews today are less than 3% of the population in America. But when it comes to the wealth in America, they actually say they're a major power block. About an average of 25% are domiciled within their communities. A lot of the companies like Disney's, Warner Brothers, even I think some of the big finance companies in New York.
Yes.
The Rockefeller.
Yeah, absolutely.
That second or third generation, but there was something in their culture where for them economics and finance was not a study, it was a way of life. They were taught to think about everything in the way of Naira and Kobo, right? And I think it's very important. Now, I know that I have to bring you back because we didn't scratch the surface on that I really wanted us to talk about, but I think two things I would want you to speak to. It's an average young person in Nigeria who is disillusioned.
Yeah.
Right. And just thinking to myself, where do I go from here? Inflation, high unemployment rates, maybe waiting for jam or jammed out of school. There are many realities of the people that millions that use this. Yeah. And I want them to listen to you, and if you were going to talk to your 17-year-old self and looking back now, what will you say to that guy and say to them that can help them believe again?
Yeah. I would say that the best place to start is where you are. I think that it can be daunting to look at the whole picture, and then that sort of induces some sort of worry. Recently, and I've been telling all my people in the office, and I'll drop it here too. One of the best quotations I've been saying is, what's the best way to eat an elephant? I don't know if anybody has heard it. They say, the best way to eat an elephant is one spoon at a time. But if you look at the whole elephant, you can't. So I would tell anybody that is that is a bit overwhelmed by everything that is going on, external, internal situation, is you can always start whatever. When I say whatever, I mean career, business. You always start from where you are. There is a gap between where you are now and where you want to be, and even if it's 100 steps, you have to first take that first step. And I think it's important not to be daunted by the whole elephant, only the spoon in front of you. So if you take, no matter how little it is, you take a chunk of that elephant, you start eating it small,
piece by piece.
But it's also important to do this with one attribute I would say a lot of people need to imbibe a lot more, that has really helped me, and I would encourage people to, is optimism, and being positive, right? My friends always joke with me that when we're in a group and somebody says, this economy is then, they say, don't ask Tunde will tell you that everything will be fine. And I will say everything is fine, but that's not because I'm stupid, but that's because that is, I'm not get too spiritual now, but that is also more like me projecting what I want to be, not what I want to happen, in terms of just being optimistic.
That's his reality.
Exactly. I think it's what you're looking for that you find most times. It might take a while, which is why I mentioned about having the aspiration to even be global or to win or whatever it is. So if you go on social media and everybody's saying, things like, and no offense to anybody, but people are saying stuff like, Nigeria is finished. May Nigeria not happen to you? This country is finished. You're in the country and you're saying it is finished. So what happens to you that you're part of the country? Indirectly, you're saying you're finished. So God forbid, if you become finished tomorrow, whose fault is it? You spoke it into existence, in my view, right? So I think it's very important for a young person, especially in this age of so much information, not to be disillusioned by how big the task is, one, and not also give into the negativity, because many people are negative. And if it requires you getting off social media or entertainment, then get off. If you think that you can't look away from people telling you that the country is finished, this one is finished, everything is finished, and I'm like, what? How are you going to get the energy, the mental energy to eat that elephant? You have an elephant in front of you. It's going to take you 2,000 spoons, but you are feeding your mind with information of why it is impossible to eat the elephant. You can never eat it. So I would say little steps with like an eye on the future, but start where you are, because that's the best place to start. And for everything, as much as possible, I know it's not easy for everybody, but as much as possible, look on the brighter side. There's usually brighter side. I would always say, if my car breaks down where there's nobody, I would say, oh, thank God I'm not blocking anybody. When my car breaks down where there are plenty of people, I'll say, thank God there are people to help. So
there's a positive side to it.
It's typically perspective.
It's a picture, a future of Africa in a few words. Where do you see Africa in a few years?
Yeah, I think that we have the luck, grace, and good fortune of being able to leapfrog a lot of things. So I think that with the right set of decisions, we can actually build a Wakanda. I mean, I'm in a studio, so yeah. And I don't even say that from because I'm a very practical person. I say Wakanda because if you look at what people like China, India, they are doing, they might not lead innovation. ChatGPT might be the first, but DeepSeek can come after, and it'll be more efficient because somebody has showed you the path. So while we might not be first, we have the grace of being an efficient follower. Let me not say first follower, because maybe China will follow first. But we can learn and we can adapt. We didn't do landlines extensively in Nigeria. We did a bit, but not the way GSMs have blown up.
2009.
Not exactly. So we have the opportunity to leapfrog, and the truth is, we're the ones that's going to make it happen, not just government. Government will help, but like I've said before, we're the ones that will actually build it. Those of us that want to build in different capacities. It doesn't have to be, not all as entrepreneurs. As some of us will go into government to help build it. Most will join entrepreneurs in their dream to help build it. We don't talk about it in detail, but I don't even advocate for, I like people to work first before entrepreneurship. That's always been my position.
And get a bit of experience.
Yeah. So, but I think that we can actually build a Wakanda for Africa.
So guys, it's not just about Wakanda in a fictitious sense.
Yeah.
It's building Wakanda in a reality here in Africa.
Yeah.
Should there be one question we should have asked you that we didn't? For that question.
What would that question be? I can't think of. I can't think of any question. Yeah, maybe.
I think the last question is, how do you stay grounded when you go through challenges? How do you stay grounded? Because you take for granted that this ability to see good in every bad situation, it's something that is just pretty given. Somehow you became this guy, but how do you stay grounded amidst all the challenges?
Yeah, it's good. So first, I would credit my parents. Up till today, as old as I am, my mom still sends me messages about staying positive when she in her mind imagines that I'm being negative about something which I am not. But so there is upbringing, so I can't take away the place of not sure. But at the same time, I think I'm also trying to be careful with a lot of the information I consume. I try my possible best to stay away from negative information and negative people. If you're always complaining, always doom and gloom, always pessimistic, I would just try to, I would keep my distance, and that really helps. And then I just really trying my best to be conscious about staying positive, and it's like it's a decision, so it doesn't always come naturally. But when I find myself, I just okay, today you've chosen to be an optimistic person. Chosen is that there is negative and there is positive, and I'm choosing this I'm trying my best to choose this path every time, and it gets easier. And like one of my friends will say, I just learned this yesterday. Apparently there is emotional intelligence, there is intellectual intelligence, and there is there is IQ, which is intelligence. There is EQ, which is emotional. Apparently there is AQ too. AQ apparently is adversity quotient. Adversity quotient is staying power. How things are not going your way, how are you reacting in the face of adversity? And I think that, interestingly, I think I have a very good way of addressing adversity in my own way. I'm not the aggressive entrepreneur. I'm not the kind of entrepreneur that I know a lot of entrepreneurs,
Like Mr. Gundikwe.
but I find out that I will just first calm when I get negative news. Like I got one very bad news day for yesterday, for example. I just first calm down. Okay, what are we going to do? The world is not coming to an end. It will not come to an end. And I found I was laughing the next day. And I was like, why are you laughing today? This issue is still on ground. You've not solved it. But I just found out that, again, it's a conscious choice of always being positive, but it's reinforced by daily actions of consuming positive information and being around positive people. And it's a reinforcing loop of people, information, and deliberate positive choices.
Well, guys, I think this has been quite a masterclass in business. Masterclass in just understanding about, I love what you spoke about, adversity quotient. So there's one thing to start, there's another thing to keep going. When you hit rock bottom, how do you bounce back? Every opportunity has challenges, but when you meet those challenges, what's your perspective? Today, like Tunde has said today, you have to choose to see the world through the lens of the good. Wherever you are, there's always a good side to it, and when you start to see good will come. There's a word we oftentimes say, I think it's the Spanish word amor fati, which is love life and life will love you, and it's about making love to the world. When you believe the world is in love with you, everything in the universe, everything in life will start to add up for you. So guys, reflect over your life today and think about what are the aspects of your belief that you need to unlearn. What are the fears about entrepreneurship? What's your appetite for risk? And because like we said today, risk is an important part of business survival. Courage. Are you being able to step out and take the risks that are before you, or you're afraid of taking those risks? Those who take courage, who are very courageous, will always win. And I think it's important for us to understand every entrepreneur is defined by the risks they take or they fail to take. So guys, as we call this a wrap today, I really think that I've been so inspired, Mr. T. You guys should check out the book. Uncle T is there, and he has a book on Amazon. We'll also plug in your social media so people can follow. Guys, I really think for me, I would want to see that book would become something schools can use, clubs can discuss, because learning about economics, about your country, about how things work is also important to you as an entrepreneur, because you're working in a pestle, in an environment, the political, the social, the economic, the legal framework, everything is there. So if you're just a businessman in isolation in the industry, policy can take you out. So you have to understand implications of every fluctuation, every policy somersault, whether it's in the US or here in Africa, it affects us one way or another. So this is my parting thoughts for you guys. I'll be happy to meet you again same time next week to discuss something fresh and exciting. For now,